It's been 17 days since I closed Ethan Harper's case. 17 days since I stood beneath the Harper cabin and found the remains of an 8-year-old boy who should never have been there. Most detectives say closing a case brings peace. They lie. A closed case only means there are fewer questions on paper. The ones in your head never stop asking. The rain beat against the windows of my office, while the old clock above the filing cabinets counted away another sleepless morning. The room smelled of stale coffee and old paper, the scent of a detective who spends more time with the dead than the living. Against the far wall stood 2 black filing cabinets that had become the story of my career. One was labeled "Open." The other was labeled "Closed." I walked to the closed cabinet and removed the brass key that hung around my neck. The lock clicked open. Inside sat dozens of folders. Some carried names, some carried only numbers. One rested at the very front. Case file 001. Ethan Harper. I stared at it longer than I intended. People think justice feels like victory. It doesn't. Justice is simply permission to move on to the next nightmare. I slid Ethan's file into its place and closed the drawer. The lock clicked shut. For a moment, the office fell completely silent. Then I turned toward the cabinet marked "Open." Only 3 folders remained. I reached inside and removed the first, case file 02. Lily Harper. Age 12. Status: missing. Classification: cold case. I carried the file back to my desk and laid it beside my recorder. The photograph clipped to the front showed Lily smiling outside the Harper family cabin. Mud covered one boot, and her hair looked windswept, as if she'd been running through Grinning Pines moments before the camera clicked. I'd seen that photograph before, back when Ethan's case consumed every waking hour of my life. The Harper cabin was no mystery to me. I knew which porch board creaked. I knew which upstairs window never fully closed. I knew the smell of the damp crawl space beneath the house. Most importantly, I knew exactly where Ethan had been found only 17 days ago. Yet somehow I couldn't shake the feeling that the cabin still held secrets. Not because I had failed to search it, because Mr. Grins wanted it that way. I opened Lily's file. The first report was dated years earlier. Search teams had combed Grinning Pines. Volunteers walked miles of trails. Bloodhounds tracked Lily's scent from the cabin into the forest before losing it completely. The report ended with a sentence detectives hate writing. Search suspended pending new evidence. New evidence never came. Years passed. Investigators retired. Witnesses forgot. The file grew thicker while the answers grew thinner. Then one line caught my attention. No remains recovered. I read it again, then a third time. Most people would see failure. I saw something else, an unfinished story. People ask why I've spent my life chasing Mr. Grins. Some think it's obsession, some think it's revenge. They're wrong. When I was 22 years old, 4 friends and I encountered something that should not exist. Only one of us walked away. Me. Since that night, I've devoted my life to making sure no one else is forgotten, especially children. 3 slow knocks interrupted my thoughts. I looked toward my office's door. "Come in." Nothing. I stood and opened it. The hallway was empty. The receptionist had gone home hours earlier. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. No footsteps, no voices, just silence. I turned to go back inside when something on the floor caught my eye. A photograph. It hadn't been there moments ago. I picked it up. The image showed the Harper cabin, not years ago. Now, the porch looked exactly as it had when I left after Ethan's investigation. The front steps were wet from fresh rain. The windows reflected grey clouds. I turned the photograph over. Written neatly across the back were 8 words. "You searched the house. You forgot to listen." The handwriting was elegant, careful, almost polite. I slipped the photograph into an evidence sleeve. Before I could sit down, my desk phone rang. "No caller ID," I answered. "Only static." Then a growling man's voice.
"You're opening the right file."
The line went dead. I didn't bother trying to trace the call. Experience had taught me that Mr. Grins never left evidence by accident. Everything he did had a purpose. Everything was part of the game. I gathered Lily's file, my recorder, my flashlight, and my coat. An hour later I was driving toward Grinning Pines. Every curve in the road felt familiar. Every mile reminded me that the Harper family's story was far from over. The forest stood dark and silent beneath the clouds, exactly as I remembered it. Waiting. The Harper cabin appeared through the trees. I parked in the same place I had 17 days earlier. The porch boards creaked beneath my boots in the same order I remembered. The department seal I had placed across the front door after Ethan's case was gone. Not broken. Gone. Someone had removed it. Slowly, I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Kitchen, living room, hallway, dining room. Everything looked exactly as it had when I left. Exactly. Which was why my stomach tightened. On the dining room table sat a white porcelain teacup. Steam rose gently into the cold air. The tea was still warm. Someone had been here only minutes before me. Beneath the cup rested a folded note. I unfolded it carefully. Only one sentence was written across the page. "Welcome back, Daniel." Below it, in smaller handwriting, was 7 more words. "Lily has been waiting longer than Ethan." Before I could read it again, 3 slow knocks echoed from somewhere beneath the floorboards. I didn't move, because I recognized the sound, and I knew, before the investigation had truly begun, that Mr. Grins already knew exactly where this case would end. I kept my eyes on the floor. The 3 knocks had come from beneath the cabin, not from the walls, not from upstairs, from below. For several seconds, I didn't move. The note remained in my hand, while the steam from the teacup drifted upward and disappeared into the dim light. The tea was fresh. Someone had been sitting in this room, waiting. For me, I placed the note into an evidence sleeve and photographed the teacup before touching it. Still warm. I checked the kitchen. The sink was dry. No dishes, no footprints, no signs that anyone had entered through the back door. I already knew this cabin better than most people know their own homes. 17 days earlier, every room had been processed from floor to ceiling. Nothing had been left to chance. Yet, something had changed, and I couldn't explain it. I switched on my recorder. Case file 002. Lily Harper. Day 1. My arrival at the Harper cabin revealed evidence indicating recent human activity. A porcelain teacup containing warm tea was found on the dining room table. A handwritten message addressed to me was recovered beneath the cup. I stopped recording. The room suddenly felt crowded, not because someone was there, because someone wanted me to believe they had never left. I walked into the living room. The fireplace looked untouched. The photographs on the mantel remained exactly where I'd seen them during Ethan's investigation. I picked one up. The Harper family stood outside the cabin. David, Emily, Ethan, Lily. I studied Lily's face. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was looking toward the tree line, as if something beyond the photographer had caught her attention. Something that no one else noticed. A floorboard creaked behind me. I spun around. Nothing. The room stood empty. My flashlight swept across the walls. No movement. Then I remembered. That board had never creaked before. I knelt beside it. The wood looked newer than the surrounding floor. Someone had replaced it. Recently. I ran my fingers along the edges. No nails disturbed. No hidden compartment. Just enough of a difference to make me question my own memory. And that was exactly how Mr. Grins liked to play. The wind outside suddenly died. The silence that followed was worse. Even Grinning Pines usually had birds. Or insects. Now there was nothing. I stepped onto the porch and looked toward the forest. The trees stood motionless. Then I noticed something hanging from the mailbox. A red ribbon. Written on the ribbon in black ink were 4 words. "She waited for you." I looked back toward the cabin. The front door was closed. I knew I'd left it open. I hurried inside. The teacup was gone. The note was gone. Only the evidence sleeve in my pocket proved they had ever existed. I searched every room. Nothing. Then I heard it. A laugh. Soft. Not mocking. Almost playful. It came from upstairs. I climbed the stairs slowly. Each step groaned beneath my weight. The hallway looked exactly as it had 2 weeks earlier. Lily's bedroom door stood halfway open. I pushed it gently. The room smelled of dust and old wood. Sunlight filtered through cracked curtains. Her bed remained against the wall. Her bookshelf still leaned slightly to one side. Then I noticed something impossible. A stuffed rabbit sat upright on the pillow. It hadn't been there during Ethan's case. I would have remembered. The rabbit held a folded piece of paper between its stitched paws. I unfolded it. The handwriting was the same elegant script. "You're looking in the wrong direction." I turned the page over. Another sentence. "The house remembers everything." Suddenly, 3 slow whistles drifted in from outside. Not knocks. Whistles. 1, 2, 3. The sound echoed through the forest before fading into silence. I hurried to the bedroom window. No one stood outside. No footprints marked the wet ground. But something else did. Fresh tire tracks. Only one vehicle had entered since the rain began. Mine. Yet another set of tracks was leaving the property. I hadn't heard an engine. I hadn't seen anyone drive away. The tracks disappeared into Grinning Pines. I grabbed my camera and followed them. They lasted less than 50 yards. Then they simply ended. No turnaround, no side road, no explanation. The mud continued untouched beyond that point. I stood there trying to make sense of it when my phone vibrated. "No caller ID," I answered. Silence. Then a growling voice spoke.
You found Ethan because I wanted you to.
I tightened my grip on the phone. "What do you want?" The voice chuckled.
I want you to find Lily.
The line went dead. As I lowered the phone, I noticed something at my feet. Pressed into the mud was the footprint of a child. Beside it, written in careful letters with the tip of a stick, were 6 words.
You're almost standing where she cried.
I stared at the child's footprint until the rain began to wash away its edges. The words beside it, "You're almost standing where she cried," looked freshly written. I knelt beside them and ran a gloved finger through the mud. The soil was soft, disturbed only recently. Someone had been here after the rain started. I photographed the footprint from every angle before placing a small evidence marker beside it. Experience had taught me that Mr. Grins never left clues by accident. Every message was a choice. Every choice was part of a larger game that only he understood. The problem was that I had started understanding his games, and that frightened me. The tire tracks had vanished without explanation, but the child's footprint pointed toward the tree line. I followed it into Grinning Pines. The forest greeted me with silence, not ordinary silence, the kind that makes you realize what you're missing. No birds, no squirrels, no insects. Just my boots crushing damp pine needles. 17 days earlier, I had searched these same woods looking for Ethan. Now I was back for Lily. I knew the terrain well enough to recognize landmarks, a split oak tree, an abandoned hunting blind, a fallen cedar that blocked part of the old trail. Everything was where it should be, except for a wooden sign nailed to a pine tree. It hadn't been there before. The sign was crudely carved. One word.
Listen.
I looked around. Nothing. Then I heard it. A girl humming. Soft. Slow. The melody drifted between the trees before disappearing. I followed the sound, recorder already running. By the time I reached the next clearing, the humming had stopped. Only the wind remained. In the center of the clearing stood a rusted swing set. I froze. There had never been a swing set here. I had walked this trail countless times during Ethan's investigation. The clearing had been empty. Now 2 swings hung from weathered chains. One moved gently, the other remained perfectly still. No breeze touched either one. I approached carefully. The moving swing slowed until it stopped. Resting on the seat was a blue ribbon. I recognized the color immediately. It matched the ribbon tied around the marble I'd found earlier. Attached to it was a tiny brass tag. I turned it over. Stamped into the metal were 3 numbers. 002. My stomach tightened. Someone wasn't just taunting me. Someone knew this investigation had become Case File 002. That information wasn't public. I slipped the tag into an evidence bag. As I stood, I noticed fresh footprints circling the swing set. Adult size. One person. The prints ended abruptly 6 feet away. Beyond that point, the ground remained untouched, just like the tire tracks. I marked the location on my map and headed back toward the cabin. Halfway there, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, I answered. Silence. Then a growling voice spoke.
You're measuring the wrong distance.
What does that mean?
You keep counting where she walked.
The voice paused.
You should count where she waited.
The line disconnected. The words echoed in my mind all the way back to the Harper cabin. Waited, not walked. I spread Lily's case file across the dining room table. Search maps, witness statements, volunteer logs. Then I noticed something I had overlooked. Every search team had expanded farther into the forest each day, but almost no one had searched the immediate area around the cabin after the first 24 hours. They assumed she had wandered away. What if she hadn't? I grabbed the original property survey from the file. The blueprint showed the cabin, the well, the woodshed, and an old root cellar that had supposedly collapsed decades before the Harper family moved in. During Ethan's investigation, no cellar entrance had been visible. According to the map, however, it should have been less than 30 feet from the back porch. I walked outside. The rain had stopped. The ground was soft beneath my boots. I counted the distance. 10 feet, 20, 30. Nothing, just grass and mud. Then my flashlight reflected off something metallic beneath a patch of wet leaves. I knelt and brushed them aside. An old iron ring, bolted into a wooden hatch. Fresh scratches marked the metal. Someone had opened it recently, and someone had closed it again. Before I could reach for the ring, I heard 3 slow knocks. Not from beneath the cabin, not from the forest, from directly underneath the hatch. I backed away instinctively. Then I noticed a folded piece of paper tucked beneath the iron ring. My name was written across the front, just one word, Daniel. I unfolded it. Inside, in the same elegant handwriting that had followed me since reopening Lily's file, was a single sentence.
You're finally standing where I wanted you.
I stared at the note for several seconds before folding it back into the evidence sleeve. You're finally standing where I wanted you. That was the thing about Mr. Grins. He never celebrated what you had already done. He celebrated what he had convinced you to do. Somewhere along the way, I had stopped asking whether I was investigating him. Instead, I was beginning to wonder if he was investigating me. The iron ring sat half buried beneath the wet leaves. Fresh scratches scarred the rusted metal. I photographed them and compared them with older photographs from Ethan's investigations stored on my tablet. Nothing. The hatch hadn't been there, or at least it hadn't been visible. I zoomed in on every old crime scene photo. Grass, mud, tree roots, no iron ring, no wooden door. If this entrance existed, then someone had concealed it exceptionally well. If it didn't, who put it there? I slipped my fingers through the ring and pulled. The hatch resisted. For a moment, I thought it had swollen shut from years of rain. Then it gave way with a long groan. Cold air rushed upward. Not the smell of decay, not mold, fresh earth, as though the ground itself had recently been disturbed. I aimed my flashlight downward. Wooden steps disappeared into darkness. The beam wasn't strong enough to reach the bottom. Protocol demanded I call for backup. Protocol also assumed you were dealing with ordinary criminals. Mr. Grins had never been ordinary. By the time another detective reached Grinning Pines, anything waiting below could be gone. Evidence had a habit of disappearing around him. I switched on my recorder. Case file 002. Possible underground structure discovered approximately 30 feet behind the Harper cabin. Descending alone. I clipped the recorder back onto my belt. Then I climbed down. The staircase creaked beneath every step. The walls were lined with rough timber that looked newer than the surrounding earth. That caught my attention immediately. These supports hadn't been here for decades. The wood still carried the scent of fresh pine. Someone had reinforced this place. Recently, I reached the bottom and swept my flashlight across a narrow corridor. The dirt floor showed footprints. Only one set. Adult size. They led deeper inside. They did not return. I followed slowly. The tunnel ended at a small chamber, no larger than my office. An old lantern sat in one corner. A wooden chair stood against the wall. Directly across from it hung a large mirror. It looked completely out of place. The glass was spotless, despite the dirt surrounding it. I approached. My reflection stared back. Tired eyes, unshaven face, rain-soaked coat. Then my reflection smiled. I hadn't. I stepped backward. The smile disappeared. The mirror showed only me again. I looked away for 1 second. When I looked back, words had appeared across the glass.
You look more like me every day.
I reached toward the surface. Nothing. No paint, no marker. The letters seemed trapped beneath the glass itself. Then, slowly, they vanished. The mirror reflected only darkness behind me. I spun around. The room was empty. The chair had moved. Only a few inches. But enough. I searched the chamber carefully. The lantern contained fresh oil. The chair showed scrape marks in the dirt. Someone had been using this room. Near the far wall I discovered a child's marble, blue with white swirls. The second one. Beside it lay a faded playing card. The Joker. Someone had written one sentence across it.
She was never afraid of the forest.
I slipped both items into evidence bags. My flashlight flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. A soft whistle drifted through the tunnel. 3 notes. The same pattern. I hurried back toward the staircase. Halfway there I stopped. The footprints I'd followed into the chamber were gone. The dirt floor behind me was smooth, untouched, as if no one had ever walked there, except me. I looked at my own boots. Fresh mud clung to the soles. The tunnel floor held no matching prints. I was leaving no tracks. My pulse quickened. I climbed out of the hatch and into the afternoon light. The cabin stood exactly where I'd left it, but something was wrong. The front door was open. I knew I had closed it before walking behind the house. I drew my flashlight and stepped inside. The dining room table was empty. The teacup had disappeared. In its place sat an old cassette recorder. A small label had been taped to the top. It read, "Play me." Against my better judgment, I pressed the button. Static crackled. Then a little girl's voice.
"Is someone coming?"
A growling voice answered.
Yes,
"When?"
when he's ready.
"Will he find me?"
A pause, and the man laughed softly.
Oh, Daniel always finds what's placed in front of him.
The tape stopped. I stood motionless. The room felt colder than before. I rewound the cassette, pressed play again. This time there was only static, no voices, no laughter, no recording, just empty noise. I removed the tape and looked underneath the recorder. A folded piece of paper rested beneath it. My name was written across the front. Inside was a hand-drawn map of the Harper property. One location had been circled in red, the spot where Ethan had been found 17 days earlier. Below the map, written in elegant black ink, were 7 words.
Some people are buried twice, Detective Mercer.
I couldn't take my eyes off the map. The red circle wasn't random. It marked the exact location beneath the Harper cabin where Ethan's remains had been discovered 17 days earlier. I'd spent years chasing evidence. Mr. Grins spent years creating it. That realization bothered me more than anything I'd found so far. He wasn't trying to stop my investigation. He was guiding it. I folded the map and placed it into an evidence sleeve before looking round the dining room again. Nothing had changed. The cassette recorder still sat on the table. The teacup was gone. The note was gone. The room looked ordinary. That was the problem. Every impossible thing I experienced disappeared before anyone else could witness it. If I ever questioned my own sanity, Mr. Grins would win. So I documented everything. I switched on my recorder. Case file 002. Evening report. The evidence recovered today suggests recent activity inside and around the Harper cabin. Multiple handwritten notes have been located. The unknown subject continues to demonstrate knowledge of my investigation and movements. I hesitated, then added one more sentence. I believe the subject wants me to continue. I clicked the recorder off. The silence returned immediately. Back in Ethan's case, every answer had eventually led beneath the cabin. Now, another trail was leading me there again. I walked into the hallway and stopped beside the spot where investigators had removed sections of flooring only weeks before. Fresh lumber had already been installed. The repair crew had done excellent work. Too excellent. One board was cleaner than the others. I knelt beside it. The screws looked untouched, yet someone had recently brushed away the dust around the edges. I retrieved a flashlight and aimed it across the floor. Tiny scratches reflected back at me, parallel marks, as though heavy furniture had been dragged across the room, except no furniture had ever stood there. I followed the scratches. They stopped beneath the staircase. On the wall, someone had written a message, not in paint, not in chalk. It looked as though the words had been carved into the wood years ago. I somehow knew they hadn't.
Wait long enough and they return.
My phone vibrated. Unknown caller. Again. I answered without speaking. For several seconds, there was only breathing. Then the familiar voice.
You keep looking for where she disappeared.
I am.
Wrong.
The line fell silent. Then the voice returned.
You should ask where she came back.
The call ended. I stood, motionless, where she came back, not where she disappeared. The wording mattered. Mr. Grins always chose his words carefully. I walked outside. The evening fog had begun rolling through Grinning Pines. The Harper cabin slowly disappeared behind a curtain of grey. Only the porch lights remained visible. Then it flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. I stared. The power to the cabin had been disconnected years ago. The light should not have been working. It flickered again, then stayed on. Someone was inside. I hurried across the yard. The front door stood open. I knew I had closed it. I stepped inside. The house was silent. My flashlight swept across the dining room. Empty. Living room. Empty. Kitchen. Empty. Then I noticed muddy footprints leading upstairs. They were small, a child's size. I followed them. Halfway up the staircase, they stopped. Not faded. Stopped. The remaining steps were perfectly clean. Lily's bedroom door stood open. The stuffed rabbit remained on the bed, except now it faced the window. I was certain it had been facing the door earlier. Tucked beneath one stitched arm was another folded note. I unfolded it. Only 5 words appeared on the paper.
You're counting the wrong days.
I read them again. Wrong days. Then I remembered. The original search teams had searched for Lily for nearly a week. I had been measuring 17 days since Ethan. Mr. Grins wanted me thinking much farther back. I hurried downstairs and spread the original case maps across the dining room table. Every search area was marked by date. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3. Then something strange caught my eye. The area immediately surrounding the cabin had only been searched extensively on the first day. After that, investigators expanded farther into the forest. No one expected Lily to remain close. No one looked twice. Someone wanted them to leave. I compared the maps with the property survey. One location overlapped perfectly. The eastern foundation beneath the cabin. The same location where Ethan's remains had eventually been discovered. My pulse quickened. Not because I believed Lily had been there for years, because I knew she hadn't. After Ethan's recovery, the entire area had been examined. There had been nothing else beneath the cabin. Nothing. Which meant if Lily was there now, someone had put her there recently. The realization sent a chill through me. Mr. Grins wasn't preserving evidence. He was creating it. He was deciding when each Harper child would be found. He wasn't hiding the truth from me. He was revealing it one piece at a time. Suddenly, 3 slow knocks echoed beneath the floor. This time, I didn't step away. I walked toward the sound. The knocking stopped beneath the section of flooring where Ethan's remains had been found. 17 days earlier. I knelt and placed my hand against the wood. It felt cold. Then I noticed something I had missed before. A fine line of fresh dirt had worked its way up between two floorboards. I brushed it aside. More dirt appeared, dark, moist, recently disturbed. Tucked into the crack was a tiny folded piece of paper. My name covered the front. Inside, in elegant handwriting, was a single sentence.
Tomorrow, Detective Mercer, you'll finally understand why I always bring them home.
I didn't sleep that night. The note sat on the desk beside my recorder while I replayed every moment of the investigation in my mind. Mr. Grins had never once tried to stop me. Every phone call, every note, every footprint, every knock beneath the floor. He wasn't leading me away from the truth. He was leading me directly to it. And that terrified me. Morning arrived beneath a sky the color of old ash. I stood in the dining room, staring at the section of flooring where Ethan Harper's remains had been discovered only 17 days earlier. After Case File 001, the area had been completely processed, photographed, excavated, documented. There had been nothing else beneath it. Nothing. If there was something there now, it had not been there then. I was certain of it. I switched on my recorder. Case File 002. Final investigation entry. I believe evidence beneath the Eastern Foundation has been recently disturbed. I paused, then spoke the words I never thought I would. I believe someone wants Lily Harper to be found. The recorder clicked off. The silence that followed seemed heavier than the house itself. I removed the repaired floorboards one at a time. Fresh screws, fresh lumber. The department had done quality work after Ethan's recovery. The dirt beneath should have remained untouched. Instead, it was loose, dark, moist. I knelt and pushed my gloved hand into the soil. It collapsed far too easily. Someone had dug here recently. Very recently. The realization sent a chill through me. I backed to where and contacted the department. This time I wasn't working alone. Within an hour, crime scene investigators arrived at the Harper cabin. The same faces from Ethan's recovery stepped into the room. One detective looked at me.
We already searched this place.
I know.
You think we missed something?
No. I looked toward the floor. I think someone came back. No one spoke. The excavation began. Photographs, measurements, evidence markers. Every procedure followed exactly. I watched from the doorway. The lead forensic technician stopped digging and frowned. He brushed away another layer of soil, then another. His expression changed. He looked at me without saying a word. He didn't have to. I already knew. The room became completely silent. The recovery team worked carefully. No one rushed. No one spoke louder than a whisper. I stood frozen while years of unanswered questions slowly emerged from the earth. A small bracelet appeared first, silver, the clasp broken, engraved with two words, Lily Harper. It matched the description inside the original missing persons report. I closed my eyes for a moment, then opened them again. The work continued. Hours later, the medical examiner approached me.
The remains are consistent with a juvenile.
I nodded. He continued.
I can't make final determinations here.
He hesitated.
But one thing is unusual.
What?
The surrounding soil.
I waited.
It doesn't match the deeper layers beneath the cabin.
He looked back toward the excavation.
It's been disturbed recently.
Exactly what I feared. Exactly what I expected. An official investigation would eventually determine the scientific facts. I already understood the horrifying implication. When Ethan had been found 17 days earlier, Lily had not been beneath that floor. Someone had placed her there after the investigation. Someone had waited. Someone wanted me to solve the case. Mr. Grins hadn't hidden Lily from the world. He had hidden her from me until he decided the time was right. By sunset, the recovery was complete. Evidence vehicles left one by one. The cabin stood silent again. I remained alone. The front door creaked behind me as I walked back into the dining room. The floor had been opened once more. Fresh plastic covered the excavation site. Then I noticed something lying on the table. An envelope. No one had seen it arrive. My name was written across the front. I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. The picture showed the Harper family standing outside the cabin years earlier. David, Emily, Ethan, Lily. Every face smiled except Lily's. She was looking toward the woods, towards someone standing beyond the camera. On the back, someone had written,
"Thank you for bringing her home."
Beneath that sentence appeared another.
"Just like Ethan."
I felt my hands tighten around the photograph. He wanted me to understand. This wasn't coincidence. It was ritual. My phone rang. Unknown caller. I answered immediately. Neither of us spoke. Finally, the growling voice broke the silence.
"You did well."
"What are you?" The voice chuckled softly.
"I keep my promises."
"You murdered those children."
"No,
A pause.
I decided when you would find them."
My heart pounded. Why? The answer came almost gently.
"Because you're the only one who keeps coming back."
The line went dead. I returned to my office after midnight. The rain had started again. I unlocked the cabinet labeled closed and placed Lily Harper's file beside Ethan's. 2 folders now rested together. 2 children had finally come home. But before I closed the drawer, something slid from inside the cabinet onto the floor. It was a small white card. I picked it up. Only 3 words were written in elegant black ink.
"Open the next."
I slowly turned toward the filing cabinet labeled open. Inside, only 2 Harper files remained. I reached for the one on top. The tab read, Case File 003. As my fingers touched the folder, 3 slow knocks echoed somewhere inside my office. I looked toward the door. No one was there, but I already knew. Case File 002 was closed. Mr. Grins had already begun Case File 003.
Thank you all for listening to Case File 002. Lily Harper. Every view, every like, every comment, and every subscription helps keep the Grinning Files alive. I truly appreciate each and every one of you for joining Detective Daniel Mercer as he uncovers these forgotten mysteries. Lily Harper's case may now be closed, but the darkness surrounding the Harper family is far from over. Somewhere in Grinning Pines, more secrets are waiting to be uncovered, and Mr. Grins is always one step ahead. If you enjoyed this investigation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. And remember, Case File 002 has been closed, but there are still 2 Harper files left in Daniel Mercer's cabinet. Join me next time as we open Case File 003, where new evidence, new horrors, and new questions await. Until then, keep the lights on, watch the tree line, and if you ever hear 3 slow knocks in the darkness, don't answer them.